This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's family.
All right, NASCAR's championship weekend once again rolls into the Valley of the Sun this weekend. There's a lot on the line, and after an exciting finish last weekend on the circuit. So let's talk to a legend. Dale Jarrett zooms in to the Extra Point Podcast. Dale, first of all, how you doing? Second of all, have you ever passed 5 cars at once before on the track?
Oh, my gosh. I'm doing great. Love my time here in Arizona and looking forward to a great weekend. Now, probably at Daytona or Talladega, at some point in time, you pass that many cars, not in that fashion that Ross Chastain chose. I talked to him the other night, Sunday night. I don't even know how you have the mindset to come up with something like that, but what an incredible display of basically ingenuity and then putting it to work at just the right time and moment to secure your spot in the championship four. It was amazing. Been around this sport now. We're going to be celebrating the 75th year of NASCAR next year. And in this amount of time that I've been around the sport, I've never seen anything like that.
Okay, so what is the most risky maneuver that you attempted and pulled off on a racetrack, and how does that compare with what Chastain did last Sunday?
I would have to say that using the apron and before, and I call it the apron, but before it was not considered going out of bounds at Daytona. There was a 3-wide situation in front of me, and I was in a line of cars. I think I was running 5th or 6th and got such a huge run off of turn 2. And as drivers started to fan out and they saw me coming, I had to go all the way below what is the yellow line there now and considered out of bounds. And I literally just got back on the track and my left front tire actually hit the apron in turn 3. And I could have wrecked the whole field right there. Fortunately, I didn't. But still, what I did doesn't even come close to comparing because you talk about speed difference, I think is the biggest thing with what Ross did. We've seen some things in years past with Carl Edwards passing Jimmy Johnson on the last lap in Kansas, where he went below him and then was going to try to ride the wall through the finish line. But those cars were still running 140, 150 miles an hour. And then you had what Kyle Larson tried with Denny Hamlin, I believe it was, at Darlington just maybe last year or the year before in trying to make a similar situation work. So it kind of shocked me to hear Larson's comments about it was embarrassing for the sport. I don't get that at all. And even some of the other drivers' comments as to, what we've heard them say in years past, what they could do. But back to what Ross did, what made it so fascinating and captivating to me was the difference in the speed, where at a place like Martinsville in the center of the corner, those people that were running from 7th through 10th were basically down to somewhere between 60 and 65 miles per hour running the proper line, or the line that most everybody ran all day, which was around the curbing and on the inside of the track. Ross was running somewhere in the neighborhood of 130 miles an hour up against the wall. So that's what made it look so fascinating to see that, just like a video game.
So it's in the physics, I guess, the science of it. I mean, what was your reaction as he started to make the move and he's halfway into it? Are you screaming? Are you yelling? Are you dumbfounded? I mean, did the whole thing feel like it was in slow motion? When our cameras first caught this, and Kyle Petty and I were watching it as we were getting ready to go do Victory Lane celebration after the race was over, you just caught a glimpse of this car, and you really couldn't even tell the first time live who it was at first. You just saw this car at a higher rate of speed. And I think Kyle and I both thought that, someone's had a problem going into turn 3 and this isn't going to end up well. But then when we realized exactly what was happening, both Kyle and I talked about this. Our thoughts were, the gate that lets people across the track and lets the haulers in and out there. Most of the time, that's not flush with the rest of the fencing and the wall there as to what was going to happen when he got to that point. And Ross even addressed that he took his hands off the steering wheel once he got into the corner, and his foot was on the floor. And I really couldn't even think as to what may be going on and how much it was going to gain him until you saw just the speed difference, and then realized that this was the move that was going to put Ross into the championship four and be able to race for a championship this weekend. So it happened so quickly that we couldn't even process what was going on until we started showing the replays of it.
Man, I mean, it's just fun. It's one of those moments you're kind of just like, oh gosh, yeah, you remember when that happened, and you just talk about it. It makes for great podcast material. So what do you think a moment like this does for the sport as NASCAR rolls in here to the Valley to settle its championship?
So I'm going to be on the opposite side of what we've heard some drivers say, that, using words from embarrassing for the sport to, we need to do something and come up with a rule. The one thing we don't need is another damn rule. We have too many of them already. So I don't even know how you consider making a rule for that. If a driver is willing to do that, you can't come up with something and take that away from him. So what does it do for this weekend? This is something that, we always know that Martinsville is going to give us moments to talk about and look ahead. And we had no idea this was going to be that moment and what will be replayed for months to come. But what it is doing is right now, the focus is now on Phoenix. And yes, we have 3 championships to decide, starting Friday night with the trucks and then the Xfinity Saturday. But now everyone is looking into how does Ross Chastain take this and parlay it into possibly his first Cup championship. And it's being played everywhere. It's not just an NBC thing. Everybody is playing this and talking about it. And so for the entire week, it was going to be something that was talked about because it is a great championship weekend here in Phoenix. But this has just amped that up. And we're going to have people tuning in that really never thought about that this Sunday that they were going to be watching this championship race.
Does momentum carry over race to race in NASCAR?
That momentum is one thing. I think confidence is another. And so there's 2 things. And Kyle Petty made a great point on this Sunday in our post-race show that, you can talk about the confidence that it gives a driver to make a move, pull this off, and realize that, it's basically your walk-off moment. But that just puts him into the opportunity to do the thing that he's always dreamed about, and that's now win a championship. The confidence level in the biggest part is what Kyle said, is that the confidence the team has in their driver now. They're willing to do anything and everything, and it amps them up to realize that, hey, if we just put our driver in a position, he's willing to do whatever it's going to take to win this race and win this next race. And I think that, more than the momentum, is the confidence that they have in each other now.
Well, you got Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, and then the old pros here, the guys who've done it before, Joey Logano and Chase Elliott. So of those 4, kind of how do you handicap who could be in victory lane when this thing's all said and done on Sunday here in Phoenix?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're going to talk about the oldest guy in here is Joey Logano, who does seem like he's been racing for a long time, but he's 32 years old. Just crazy to think that the other 3 are in their 20s. And this is just great. It just shows the sport's in a great place. So let's talk about Joey Logano, who has a championship. And this is the guy that you really you can't count out. Christopher Bell said this on our post-race show to us that, you know that you're going to have to race Joey Logano until lap 312, or is it lap 315 or 320 by the time we finish up with overtime situation. So whatever the last lap is, you're going to be racing Joey Logano, and he's going to give it everything that he has. And I use this term in an endearing way. I hope that Joey always takes it, that he's just a bulldog. He's going to do, he's so many times times Joey Logano is a better driver, much better driver than the car and piece of equipment that he is driving that particular day. So he's not only going to get everything out of that car, but he's going to get more than what that is because of his talents. Chase Elliott, our other champion. So one of those could be a two-time champion, which separates you from a lot of people in this sport that have one championship and just takes you to another level. I will have to say that Chase hasn't shown in these playoffs the ability to go dominate a race, and this is a weekend that you don't have to worry about getting stage points. Points don't make any difference. You've got three other competitors is all that you're trying to outrun. Now, we have seen it since the playoffs began a number of years ago that you had to win the race to be the champion. This might be the one year that doesn't happen, but these drivers are going to give it everything, and they could end up battling. So many times we see these four all in positions 1 through 4 or the top 5. That could very well happen again, but Chase hasn't shown that in the playoffs. His regular season good works, his 5 wins there, and getting just tons of playoff points really is what's carried him through this. He can't rely on that anymore. Points doesn't make any difference. He has to figure out a way to outrun these 3 competitors, but he's done that before. You look at what Ross did. You have to believe that that happened for a reason. And you talked about momentum and confidence. It would not surprise me because he actually was the best of the 4 competitors. He was the best here back in the spring. He had a real chance to win that race. So you have to give him a really good shot at winning that first title for himself. And then Christopher Bell, I told him the other day, I said, I don't know whether to call you the new Iceman, the new closer, but you figure out a way to get it done. And he's got a great heart, tremendous ability, and probably the best team throughout the entire year at Joe Gibbs Racing. And we saw just 2 years ago when Chase Elliott won his first championship here, he did it by winning at Martinsville. Don't be surprised that if Christopher Bell's not holding that trophy when Sunday is finished.
Man, as a guy who's held that trophy himself, what is that moment like, all the work that goes into it and being able to say, we came out on top?
As a competitor, it's the greatest feeling of accomplishment that you'll have. I don't know what it's like to win 2 because I only won the 1, but I know the 1 was the opportunity to look back on everything that it took to get to that point. All the people that it took, realizing that yes, my name was the one that's going to be associated with the championship, but there were so many people involved for many years before that, but in particular that year in 1999 when we had a great race team, but it took everybody doing their job to make it happen. Sometimes you don't take it in enough to understand and think back on everything that it took, but just the feeling of accomplishment that you were the best for a year. And, this is what you set out. Every team that starts the year at Daytona, this is the position they want to be in, but there's only going to be one celebrating that at the end of the day.
Well, and we got a chance recently out at the track to get behind the wheel and see what it's like. I got kind of mocked for not maybe going as fast as I should have the first couple laps, and you came just flying right past me with our producer here, Matt Hippie, who's in studio with us as well. Was I not going fast enough, or did you have a different? Did they just put me in a slow car? How'd that all work out?
Well, let's say that I had a good car, but most people underperform when you get there. You have these expectations, and then it's just so overwhelming. I mean, I had not been in a car in 3 years really driving, and I'd never driven the new configuration. Jeff Burton took me around in a pace car, and that's the only time I'd really ever been around it. So I actually got there a little bit early to get used to the car. I told the instructors, and I told Matt Humphrey from the Phoenix Raceway, and I told Julie Giese when I got out there, I said, I want to take a few laps early because I didn't want to scare myself and my first passenger. So I did have a few laps to get used to it, but it was great. I had a great time, and I'm supposed to run faster than anybody else there. So I hope that I was going to be able to pass you and anyone else that was on the racetrack there. But it was a lot of fun, great day. And I encourage everyone, if you have the idea and wanted to see, what it's like to drive these, because I know many people sit and criticize on Saturday night or Sunday, why didn't my driver do this? Why didn't he do that? Why couldn't he go faster? It's not as easy as it looks like sitting on your couch and watching it on TV, is it?
Well, it was. I know it was cool for Matt. And Matt, as you sit here, you brought some props in. We noticed on your old car here, there's an NFL logo here, and
yes.
Driving for Joe Gibbs. And man, I mean, what kind of memories does that bring back? Just seeing that thing sitting here.
That's great memories right there. And just last Thursday, I did an interview at Joe Gibbs Racing with Coach Gibbs and Jimmy Makar. Jimmy is my brother-in-law. He's married to my sister, Patty. And Jimmy was the first employee hired at Joe Gibbs Racing. When Joe Gibbs contacted me in 1991 about being a driver for his new race team, when I decided that, yes, I would like to make this move and come drive for a football coach. I don't really know why that seemed like a good idea, but it's what I thought I was going to do. I said, one thing we have to do is hire Jimmy Makar. He was at the time with Rusty Wallace. They'd been at Blue Max Racing and Penske, and he took the opportunity to come start Joe Gibbs Racing. And Jimmy is retiring. This Sunday will be his last race for nice. Joe Gibbs Racing.
Wow.
Been there 31 years. Just incredible. And Joe said in our interview, and some of it will run on Sunday on our NBC telecast in the pre-race show, that this was a challenge that he accepted, but there were no guarantees that it would even make it. That he could put everything together. He literally had 15 employees that first year. In 1992 was our first year of competing, and they have over 500 employees at Joe Gibbs Racing now. And you go into their shop and which is massive, from the little, I don't know, we probably had 15,000 square feet, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of square feet they have now, but it's incredible. And they have all of the cup banners from their wins. And fortunately, I'm the first two that they have there. And the Daytona 500 was our first one in 1993 for Joe Gibbs Racing. But Christopher Bell just put up number 200 for Joe Gibbs Racing, which is just hard to imagine as we started this team then. So to think back to that, I'll tell you a funny story though, and then we went over this too, that day that I won. So we had a deal with the NFL that I would wear the different helmets of the football teams, that wherever we were going, we tried to match that up to the different teams. And so it was a lot of fun to do. Somehow, some way, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I ended up that with the 93 Daytona 500, I was actually wearing a Dallas Cowboy helmet. And with Joe Gibbs, the coach of the Washington Redskins, after I got out and we were celebrating in Victory Lane, Joe actually saw the helmet sitting on top of the car, and he told one of our PR people, he said, "You got to get that off of there and out of sight." He said, "I can't have that being photographed with me somewhere nearby and that Dallas Cowboy helmet." So it actually took us a while. They did a really good job of getting it out of the picture because we didn't even find the helmet like for months. We couldn't even figure out where it was.
Oh man, I'm sure that's a collector's item. I'm sure Matt Hippie would like that in his living room here. How does NASCAR kind of compete with the NFL? I mean, you think more people are going to be switching over from football to NASCAR on Sunday, especially after what we saw last Sunday, to kind of see how this thing ends?
Well, it certainly helps out, but there's no competing. But we're not crazy, and we live in our world in NASCAR, and we appreciate the great fan base that we have. But there's nothing. I'll be the first time. I'm a huge NFL fan myself, but I think that what they saw this past weekend, or what they've seen the highlights of, will bring some people over. And I actually believe the Cardinals play Sunday afternoon, correct? So
yep, against Seattle. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people, which is going to be a great game in itself. And but I do believe that the things that have happened, that people are going to tune in and say, hey, is there possibly someone going to make that move? Because this racetrack could lend itself to that happening going into turn 3, coming to where the start-finish line is and getting the checkered flag, that someone could make a move like Ross did. Now, people are going to be waiting and ready for someone to do that, so it might be a little more difficult to pull off, but people are going to tune in to see if that is a possibility. And just the fact that Ross did this, now can he parlay that into a championship?
And what brought you out to the Valley of the Sun? I guess so many years on the East Coast and making your way around the country and around the world. Why was Phoenix, Arizona and Scottsdale the place for you?
Sun. I love the warm weather. My old body, getting beat up for years in a race car, that did not like the cold weather that North Carolina brings, especially as we get to this time of year. It's getting a lot cooler there, and then through the winter months, that and great golf courses. So it was always somewhere that I enjoyed coming to, not just to race at Phoenix Raceway, but I always came out here early to play golf, made a lot of friends in this area, and finally things just worked out to where it was time to make that move. So in May of 2021, bought a house out here and love it. Now if I can just get the Diamondbacks or someone to put my son Zach on their roster, he's a minor league baseball player, and if that could happen, then life would be just close to perfect.
Oh man, so is he out here working out? Is he looking for a gig right now?
Yeah, he's looking. So he got drafted by the Orioles back 5 years ago when he finished college, and was in their organization until the last day of spring training of 2022, which was a terrible timing. But he ended up playing in the independent league this year. But he's talking to teams right now. He actually, I was just talking to him before we started this video here, and he's got an invitation to come out and for the free agent camp with the Kansas City Royals in Surprise in early January. So he's hoping that more of those opportunities. He has opportunities to play in Mexico. So he does have options, but would certainly like to have something to where he's in a farm system or work his way. He got all the way to AAA with the Orioles, but just never was able to make that jump quite yet. But he's ready. He had a great season, hit 20-some home runs, and actually was in a club that there's only 24 in the independent league that have ever done it, but to hit 20 or more home runs and steal 20 or more bases in a season.
Oh, wow. And I mean, I guess what do you tell him here is you worked your way up, and I'm sure there were some days where you were saying, man, I maybe should have accepted that golf scholarship to South Carolina. What am I doing in a race car? And he's trying to make it as a baseball player. And what's your message to people that have a dream, but that dream, it's not always the easiest road?
No, it's not. No, nothing's going to be easy for anything worth having. And, in my world, my success came late. Unfortunately, in the world of baseball in particular, which is what Zach has chosen, he's really good at it. And I honestly believe if he were given a 30-game stretch in the major leagues, they would find out that this is a young man that they need. He's 27, and that they need on their roster because he has home run power. He's an outfielder and does a great job. But I just tell him you can't give up, and you take each and every day, whether it's practice or whether it's a game, you give it like that. You've got the scouts from every team. Those eyes are on you watching, because you really don't ever know when that you can make that difference in someone's opinion and get them to want you and feel like they need you. So it's just live every day. The same things with my other son, Jason, and my two daughters, Natalie and Carson, that, you're always on a stage performing, and we've encouraged them to chase their dreams, and they do that. But you have to give each and every day your all.
How was it with 4 kids popping around from town to town? Did you miss those days at all, or do you what's your advice to parents out there trying to make it happen?
Oh my gosh, it was such great fun, but there were things that I missed out on, and it just, I tried my best to get back for as many as I possibly could, but there's just going to be times when the timing wasn't right. They were fortunate that all the kids were really good athletes. Their mom was good athletes, so they played sports, and we loved to see them compete, but I couldn't be there for everything. They understood that, but it was great when we could travel as a family. We lived in a motorhome basically year-round, traveling around the country, and they enjoyed doing that. They thought it was great what we were able to do. So it was great fun, and I think there were a lot of lessons that they learned and throughout this, not only the competing side and understanding that whatever it is that you choose to do, you're going to be in competition. And so I think that's why athletics and sports are so important. It's not for everybody, but find something, because whatever you do in your life,
you're going to be competing at for the rest of your life. And so they enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed watching them and still enjoy watching them further their careers to this day.
All right. Well, we are just very, very appreciative of your perspective here on the Extra Point Podcast. Matt Hippie, I think he wants to ask if he can jump back in the car with you. How did that go, by the way?
Anytime. It was fantastic. It was so hard. I was trying to record, some stuff for us to use for, the story, but I'm also trying to experience it at the same time. It's hard not to experience it when you're in there, but it was I didn't even know that you were going to be driving, Dale, until a minute before I got into the car, and I was like, "Oh, yeah." I wasn't prepared for that at all. That was incredible. So thank you so much for that. That was
jump in the car with a guy that you've been watching your whole life and have rooted for.
Yeah, I love doing that because and normally we try to. I know when I had our driving school, and actually a couple of the cars that the NASCAR Experience uses are cars that they bought from our driving school back. I think we sold it in 2017. But what I always tried to do is I was going to give rides was I wanted the people that were there to drive and then ride. I wanted them to drive first because we had a couple of times we learned a lesson the hard way, which happens a lot in NASCAR. You have to learn things the hard way. But we had some people that would ride with me first, and then they would try to go do what I was doing, which is a terrible idea. We were lucky we didn't lose a few cars and people with them trying to drive to the places that I would on certain tracks and things and doing that. But I love the experience of doing that. I've given a lot of people rides. Gave Charles Barkley a ride out in Las Vegas one time, and he was literally terrified. And I wanted to have fun with him. I wanted him to have a great time, but I also wanted to give him a little bit of a thrill, and he got that. Matter of fact, it was so scary to him that he wouldn't even drive after that. So he said that's as much excitement as he needed for that particular day. But it's always fun to see people be able to get behind the wheel of a car or to give them a ride and show them, this is how we do it when we're strapped in the car. Maybe, we're a few miles per hour slower, but it is a lot of fun to do that.
Well, here's to doing it again. And we thank you. We thank you for your time, and thanks for giving Matt a ride here.
Absolutely. Look forward to the next time. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you out at the track this weekend. And, have a great weekend and enjoy the weather out here. The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.